Is Forspoken really as bad as all the reviews are saying it is? Honestly, I don't think so. Let's talk about it. Hello there everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Forspoken, the latest PS5 exclusive, a little bit different here from my usual Nintendo flavor, but I got the game a few days early and I wanted to just give my thoughts on Forspoken now that the reviews are out, now that I haven't beaten the game, full disclosure. I think I have 4 chapters left, 3 or 4 chapters left. I'm not sure how long those will be, but they've all been pretty short for the main story, and I want to give my thoughts on it against all of the reviews that came out, because honestly, I kind of like this game more than I expected. Going into it, when this game was announced, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when the PS5 was revealed in 2020 as Project Athia, I was cautiously optimistic, right? I thought the trailer looked a little... there was definitely some downgrades happening. I could tell it looked a little too good, but also... I just thought like the parkour movement, all that stuff, it didn't really look like it was going to necessarily work as well as I would want it to in actual practice. This is coming, of course, from Luminous Productions, the creators of Final Fantasy 15, and my stance on Final Fantasy 15 is that I actually like that game. I know a lot of people don't like 15, and, it's a very polarizing game, which is kind of why I think Square Enix took them off of it and had them do a new IP with Forspoken. But I like Final Fantasy 15, and I like its combat. I don't think it's the most in-depth thing ever, but I had fun with it. I had fun with Final Fantasy 15, and just the same, I had fun with Forspoken, or I'm having fun with Forspoken. I'll probably finish it up after I record this video and get it ready for today. The major thing people are complaining about with Forspoken is the dialogue. That is ridiculous. I'm gonna be honest. Listen, I've seen the clips. I get it. I know. Marvel humor, haha, I don't like it, cringe humor, whatever. It's really not that bad. I know there's an option in the settings to turn off how often your cuff talks to you, which is basically your companion through the game. He's how you do your powers. He talks to you. There's a lot of witty banter between you two. You can turn it down. I haven't even felt the need to do that. I was fully expecting to want to turn that off, and I haven't really felt the need. There are times where it's a little bit annoying, but for the most part, playing the game, I think I'm, 10 hours in or something like that. It's really not that bad. There are those few exceptions that people are really honing in on, and if you don't like that from those clips, then okay, like that's fine, but those are like the worst examples that I've seen so far of the Marvel humor, and frankly, I didn't really have an issue with it to begin with. It gets a little cringe, but I don't know. I was definitely expecting it to be worse based on the pre-release trailers for the game. But really, it's funny. The trailers really did not do it justice, I don't think. That is not to say that the writing is good. Let me make that clear. And this is where the big issue with Forspoken, the first big issue arises for me. It's the story. I don't think the story's good. I don't think the villains are interesting. I think the world of Athia is sick. I think Athia is really cool. I like medieval fantasy, kind of fantasy worlds like this. I really like Athia. But the story and characters, not good. Frey's okay. Surprisingly, the one that everybody's making fun of on Twitter because of her Marvel jokes, I think Frey's a pretty cool character. I like her. I like her motives. I like seeing her grow as a character, how she, eventually decides to help out Athia versus just doing things for her own personal interests. I like that she has a girl cat named Homer. That's awesome, obviously. But man, that story is just, it's close. It's close to getting me, but it's just not quite there. I think if it had better characters outside of Frey, it would have been there. But the side characters are so forgettable. You have a few handful of people that stay in the city of Sepal, and then you have your villains, and none of them are very interesting. None of them really feel like they are affecting the story that much. I guess the other main character you have is Cuff, and like I mentioned, Frey is not the issue. If anything, if you want to really complain about the witty dialogue, I think it's Cuff. Cuff is the issue. He's playing a Stanley Parable character. He's playing Wheatley from Portal 2, but he's doing it poorly. So if you really want to hone in on a character with bad writing and bad dialogue, it's Cuff. Cuff is kind of annoying, but for me, it's definitely not a deal breaker, and it's certainly not the biggest issue with the game. The story just being not interesting is a much, much bigger issue. And while we're on that negative train of thought, let's keep it going here. This game feels a little underbaked, just in terms of how the movement feels, how the animations look. It feels like it could have used another year or two. It looks like an early PS4 game at certain times. Other times it looks pretty good, but, I would say it looks worse than Final Fantasy 15, for example, and it's from the same studio. I don't know how that happens. The animations, especially the facial animations, the modeling on characters that aren't Frey especially look really poor. Even the characters that matter in the story, like Alden, early on you'll meet her, she doesn't look good. The facial animations don't look good. I was fighting a boss, and she was, like, screaming at me, but her face was just like this. She was screaming like this. She was just looking dead in the camera, just screaming. And I was like, you're not conveying anger in your facial expressions. So stuff like that definitely make the game kind of just feel a little bit less polished, a little bit more underdeveloped. But what's, I think, more of an issue is how it actually affects the gameplay. We'll get to the combat in just a minute, which is definitely the highlight of the game. But the parkour movement when you're running around, dashing around, which from the trailers I think would be one of the main selling points of the game, it just feels janky. It's still fun. I do really think it's actually still fun to run around, but it's definitely janky. Climbing up mountains, janky. Doing the little double jump over cliffs and all that, climbing on ledges, very janky. It's fun, but it's janky to the point where it shouldn't be janky. So I understand where reviewers are coming from. And that's the thing, right? I disagree with most of these reviewers in that it's like a 60 or a 70. Well, maybe not 70. I think it's probably around 70, 75, 80. But it's interesting because while I don't necessarily agree with them, what they're saying is almost all true. The issues with the game are definitely there, but I guess for me, they just don't hinder my experience enough to the point where I'm like, I don't want to play this game anymore. I'm actually excited to get back to it and finish the game and roll credits and maybe even go for some, maybe the platinum trophy or something, because I was looking at the trophy list, seems kind of like an easy platinum. But let's talk about the open world real quick of Athia. Like I said, I like Athia as a setting. However, I don't think they put the right things into the world for you to do. This is a Ubisoft game. This is a Ubisoft checklist game. You have your towers, you have your trials, you have your photo ops, all of these things. You have detours, as they call them, which are just side quests. And those are pretty good from what I've done. I haven't done a ton of side quests, admittedly. But it's very much a checklist game. You open the map, you're overwhelmed. They want you to run around and grab all the treasure chests, get all your upgrades. And for me, I haven't played a game like that in probably about a year. So right now, for me, unless you count Xenoblade 3, right now for me, that's fine. But if you play these games a lot, you're going to feel pretty, it's redundant. It's a Ubisoft redundant designed game from that aspect, from the world design and what's in the world. And one of my bigger issues, and I think I saw someone else mention this in the review, is, you know, the beginning of the game is pretty slow. In fact, I would say the first 3 hours of the game are worse than anything that comes after it. Even in terms of the dialogue, right? I think it gets better, simply better as you get into it and unlock more magic you can use. I want to say around chapter 4, you get access to like the full open world, or at least most of the open world, and you can explore and do things, fight enemies in the overworld. For the first couple hours, I was having fun. I was having fun fighting all these enemies. But as you keep progressing, it becomes pretty clear that you don't really need to fight anything. It's kind of like the Breath of the Wild issue. Once you have the equipment you need, there's no real reason to engage in combat with a lot of enemies. So for the past like 3 chapters, I've just been kind of doing the main plot. If I see an enemy, just running past it. Definitely not the way the game was designed to be played, but I'm having fun with it still despite that. But definitely an issue, definitely something that I think they should have balanced more with the upgrades, and we'll talk about that now really quick. This is an RPG. You have your skill trees. You have different skill trees depending on which magic you're using. The upgrades are cool. Sometimes a little confusing. The way you get them is a little muddy in my eyes, because sometimes it's like, okay, well, first of all, the nails you get from defeating certain enemies, but also, yeah, you have nails that give you stat boost. That's fun. But then the magic increases. You collect mana around to unlock new magic, but then also you have challenges you need to do to upgrade those magic that you unlock with the mana. It seems a little convoluted, I think, to the point where, you know, I upgraded most of Frey's magic. I haven't really been messing around too much with the other magics as I've gotten them a little bit more recently in the story. I'm sure I'll do that more as I progress, but yeah, I think the progression's a little weird. Basically, it's funny, I feel like I've been talking very ill of the game, but I don't feel ill of the game. It definitely has those issues, but for me, I'm still having fun with it. And that fun all comes from the combat. And once again, just to start off with a negative, I think the first 3 hours of this game are boring. And I do think that Frey's magic, the first magic that you get, is the least fun to use. Right now, where I'm at, I have 3 types of magic. I'm assuming there's a 4th. Based on a trophy I saw, said something about shocking people, so there's going to be some sort of shock magic. The second magic you get is you basically get a sword. And the game completely, it just changes the way you play. And it gives you that option to play how you want. I do think Frey's magic has its moments against certain types of enemies, but overall, the second type and the third type, which I haven't used too much yet, but from what I did use, I did like it. It's like water magic. they're way more fun. I think they should have just swapped these around. They should have made Frey have a sword or something, just from the outset, and then unlock the other things later, because it feels a little janky. Once again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying with the parkour, especially against certain enemy types that are, you know, invulnerable to their attacks. It just doesn't feel good at certain times, but then other times it feels really good. I'm very mixed, I guess. This is what I'm saying now. As I'm talking myself through it, I'm very mixed on this game, I guess. I definitely like it more than I think most of these people on Twitter are saying and all the reviews, but it still has a lot of issues, admittedly. But when the combat feels good, it feels really good. It feels like the highs of like Final Fantasy 15 for me. And like I said, I like Final Fantasy 15. If you don't like that game, then don't even bother, I would say. If you don't like the combat in 15, if you don't like that fast, frenetic action RPG combat, you're not going to like Forspoken, and that's completely fine. For me, I like that stuff. I like something a little bit more, I guess, casual, if you want to say, and just kind of sometimes feels like a button mashing. I played the demo for this when it came out back in December. Not too much, but just a little bit. And I remember feeling very overwhelmed. And I think this is something I was gonna say, but I think I've kind of mastered it at this point. The spell switching and all that, it's not the most intuitive, to be honest. You know, to switch your R2 attack, you hold R1. Then there's the wheel. Your support attack, you hold L1. Then it's L2 to use it. But then to switch your magic type, you hold L1 and R1 together. Then there's another wheel. It's just a lot of like wheel selecting during combat, and it's definitely not the most elegant solution. I feel like there's something they could have done better in terms of button mapping. But in the demo, like I was saying, though, I felt really overwhelmed with that, and I'm sure a lot of people did as well, because you start off in that demo with 2 magic types. As you progress through the game and you're gradually getting more spells and you're learning what they do, it kind of just slowly eases you into it, to the point where it didn't really feel as overwhelming as I expected it to be. And especially now that I have 3 magic types, I feel like I'm pretty good at it in terms of switching them mid-combat when I need to. And I don't know, the combat is definitely the highlight. If you like these fast-paced action RPGs like this, you will probably like the combat. And I do want to say, I think maybe was a little bit too harsh on Frey's magic. It's just not as fun as the second or third magics that you get, which I think is a mistake. You always want to have fun magic in the beginning, because as I've played, I've just liked the game more and more. It's simply gotten better and more fun to play as the game has progressed and I've unlocked more abilities. So yeah, I'm excited to play more Forspoken. I think it's getting a bad rap. I don't think it's incredible or anything. I think it's probably like a 7 or an 8 from what I've played. I haven't beaten it yet. Once again, full disclosure, but I don't know. I'm enjoying it. I feel like people are just being a little bit too harsh. I think if this game came out in 2016, people would have been all over it. I really do think that. Graphically, I didn't talk about that really much. Kind of goes in with the polish and the facial animations. It definitely doesn't look like a PS5 game, like going in with like the whole, if it came out a couple years ago, I think it would have done much better. I think people would have been much more positive on it. There's definitely an oversaturation with open world games like this, the checklist open world games, and is that a fault of the game itself or the current landscape of the industry? A little bit of both, I think, you know? Obviously, we see games like Elden Ring adapting, and Forspoken it certainly should have had the time to adapt, but as someone who doesn't play Assassin's Creed and every Far Cry, you know, every once in a while coming to a game like this, I'm enjoying it, and I'm excited to play more, and I would say if you're interested in it, play the demo, first of all. I think it's still available. Wait for it to come to PS Plus, or wait for a sale. I think more around like the $30 to $40 range. This is a pretty no-brainer in my opinion if you like single-player games, if you like a game that's not going to waste a ton of your time. You know, I personally like me a good 10 to 15-hour game. It's looking like this is going to be one of those unless I decide to 100% it, and I like that. I know some people want to get way more mileage out of their games. That's totally going to vary by person, but for me, I like a good 10 to 15-hour game, sometimes even shorter than that, sometimes longer, but that's like the sweet spot for me. And as of right now, I'm really enjoying Forspoken, despite its faults. It has very obvious faults, I will not deny that, but I'm having fun with it. Sometimes maybe it's just hitting me at the right time, you know? Maybe I just came off of Fire Emblem Engage, so nice, like, actual action game. Maybe that's just what I needed. But yeah, I don't know. I'm enjoying it. Let me know. If you are picking up Forspoken today, are you excited to play it? And let me know your thoughts if you do play it a little bit. If you played the demo, let me know your thoughts. I just think people are being a little bit harsh. I don't know. I feel like it's not that bad. You know, I'm looking at Metacritic right now. Someone gave it a 4. It is not a 4 in any world. It's not even buggy. Performance is fine. Like, I don't get it. It's just a little underpolished, and the story isn't great. But the gameplay's fun. So I don't know. If you like action RPGs, you're probably gonna like it. So with that said, thank you so much for watching this impressions video. I don't want to call it quite a review because I haven't beaten the game, as I said. But yeah, I just wanted to make a video on Forspoken. I do have this little game right here a little early. Not sent by the developer. I don't get codes early. And if I do, I will disclose it, of course. So I'll be doing a video on Dead Space. I want to try to branch out a little bit more, do some more PS5 stuff on top of the obvious. I'm a Nintendo fanboy here. Yeah, I'm going to start doing more branching out here. So if you enjoyed this, please subscribe for more game reviews, game news, coverage, all that fun stuff. And check me out on Twitter @BoTalksMedia. Until next time, folks. Bye-bye.